Hey guys, welcome to Pro Wrestling 101. We're here with former WWE and ECW original, a good friend of mine, and one of the best at what he does, little Guido. Guido, I just wanted to kind of ask you to put it in your words. You're one of the finest technical wrestlers around. I mean, you were brought up old school. You were taught by some of the best. And just kind of give me like what you think about, you know, how important is it, because I think it's very important for, you know, people to have a background or a basis in, like, you know, fundamentals, because these days kids do too many high spots and they don't, you know, they forget that this is the wrestling business and there's more to it than fancy moves. That's like something I've been preaching on in this show. So kind of just, you know, give me like what your thoughts are on what, you know, the fundamentals and the technical wrestling that you're so great at, you know, well, quite honestly.
Like you said, the fundamentals are very important, which is a lot skipped right now. Yeah. A lot of guys are just watching what they see on TV and they're getting in there and doing 100 high spots and not telling a story. Right. You know, and that's what it's all about. You gotta physically and emotionally bring the fans into your match, which ECW always did. And that's how we learned, and that's how we learned to move on to WWE and WCW. You know, I was very lucky. I had an amateur background. Right. And even if you don't have an amateur background, to be a pro wrestler, it's good to go back to learn from somebody with an amateur background, just to make yourself different, because a lot of guys...
Yeah, well, what I was saying is, and I didn't want to forget what you were saying, the amateur background, people could tell you look, I mean, you're a legitimate tough guy, and you legitimately know, I'm serious, and you legitimately know what you're doing, and the difference is, like a guy like you, or even a Chris Benoit, God rest his soul, you guys were just so direct in the ring. You looked like killers, you know? Well,
being my height, 5'7", 5'8", and at the time I got involved in the business, it was the world of the Giants. Yeah. You know, I couldn't do a big man match. I had an amateur background. I was captain of my wrestling team in high school. And when I first got involved with the wrestling business, I actually moved on to UWFI and got trained by Billy Robinson, who, for people that don't know, who's a legit shooter and badass in his business. You just Google his name, you know who he is. So being a smaller guy, I knew I had to do something different. And even watching the Taz character and all that thing, I'm like, you know, the fans, if they can believe what you do, you'll win them over. Absolutely. You know, if they don't believe that you know how to amateur wrestle, you could do 2, 3 chain wrestle moves and they're going to shit on you. Yep. But if they believe in you and they know you are a shooter or an amateur wrestler, they will buy what you're doing. So a guy like me, being my size, that's how I had to come into this business, with that shoot style background. And then I worked my way up and I found my niche and my character, and Paul Heyman helped me out a lot with that, making me in that comical stable, because I was a smaller guy, but he saw some entertainment in me. And little by little, I worked my way up to being involved with different characters and stuff like that, and then moving up to WWF or E. But I used my amateur background in the beginning because that's all I had. I didn't have anything else. Right. So I used my amateur background, and little by little, once I got made my moves up the ranks, brought me into a comical stable, then a serious stable, and then so on. So you got to take advantage of what God gives you and then capitalize on that.
That's a great point. Guys, absolutely, you know, if you're looking for that, if you're in the business, you're young in the business, you're looking for that niche, this gentleman certainly found it. I mean, look, be aggressive, learn your fundamentals, and I'm telling you, that's a formula for success, and listen to it from him. He knows this business.
And one other thing I want to say, nowadays it really is way too easy to find a wrestling school. You get on the internet, you hit a button, and 52,000 schools pop up. You guys need to do your homework and find out who's who's running these wrestling schools. Because a lot of times today, a guy will wrestle for 2, 3 months, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, he's training people. Yeah. Well, how could this guy be training people? He don't even know what he's doing. So it's very important. You want to find a school that's run by a Johnny Rods or a Larry Sharp or somebody that's been in the business, Gino Caruso, somebody that's been in the business for many years. Yeah. Sometimes you don't have to ever remember them from TV, because unfortunately in this business there's a lot of guys that are very good and know their craft and are great as far as storylines and great psychology-wise, but never made it to the big time. But unfortunately, that's just the breaks you have to catch. So sometimes just because you don't know who they are on TV, you can still do your homework and they still be great teachers and understand our business. Just because they're on TV doesn't mean they know what the hell they're doing.
You heard it. Listen to one of the guys that does it as good as anybody else. That's Pro Wrestling 101. I'm just incredible. Thanks for joining us.